now, but I'd also like to welcome Keith Maleho, who's from the Civil Aviation Authority. He's really a fantastic guy, and love working with him, love his passion for the industry, and really, really knowledgeable. So welcome, Keith. Then we've got Karim Kovlet, who's from Altitude Angel, and he's from the UK, so his pictures, he's looking quite white there, and they've just had a heat wave, so if he comes on the video there and is looking a bit darker, you know why. And then obviously myself as well, I'm going to be talking around the drone data value chain for you, and just giving you an update on our bursary program that's been happening. So thanks to our guests for coming on, and thanks for your time, and thanks for you as our attendees today. So who am I? I'm Dean Conde. I work at IOCO, part of the EOH group. I'm a key account manager, and I'm lead on the UTM side of things, which is Altitude Angel. I've been in data and analytics over 10, 12 years, so that's really my speciality. I do hold a PPL heli on the Robbie 22 and 44, and I'm also just a drone hobbyist at this stage, and self-taught drone engineer. YouTube's a great thing for learning about drones. I love being innovative and visionary, and I really just want to change lives. And today's and this drone economy that we're going to talk about is all about safety, and how safely we can operate in this environment as a whole. So that's a little bit about me. I also am a handicapped scuba instructor and normal scuba instructor as well, and that's where the bursary program really came about. So what I really wanted to just do with you is give you a little bit of an overview around data, because drones are collecting massive amounts of data. If you look at a .dat file out of DJI, from one flight, a couple of gigs, can be more, and what do you do with that data to maximize the value? So if you have a look at something like this big data value chain model from Curry, I think it's a classic example of looking at the different areas in your business that you need to look at from a data perspective. The first one obviously being data acquisition. And if you have a look and think about a drone, a DJI drone, whatever drone it may be, first of all, it's structured data, but then how do you take unstructured data, sensor networks like IoT, and real-time data, and how do you pull that all into a system that gives you maximum value? And so then you have to start analyzing that data, but you can't analyze it on your own. You need some machine learning, you need AI, you need some discovery tools, etc. And you need to start mashing this information together. And that's where the data curation comes from, in terms of cataloging and librarying this massive amount of data that you're starting to collect. But also when you mash it together, how do you data model it correctly so that it makes sense to the business? And so once you've got all of this data, another big thing for you is going to be around data storage. Where do you put all of this data? Is it in Google Cloud? Is it in AWS? Do you keep it on site? What are your options in terms of storing this data so that you can maximize the value going forward? And really the ROI is around data value. How do you use this data to actually make better decisions? How do you simulate this data using things like digital twin technology? How do you model it correctly? And how do you control it from a POPIA perspective, for instance? So this is one way of looking at the data value chain. And IOCO and Nextech, we help our customers along the entire journey in this data value chain with you. But in order to get data and to get these drones off the ground, we need regulations, we need policies. And to take you into a little bit more around that, I'm now going to hand over to Keith. Over to you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Dean. Thank you very much, Dean. From that short presentation, I feel like I'm a data scientist. I do apologize from my end. There's a bit of a lag with our slides. So I do apologize. While we wait for that to then get going, I'm just going to introduce myself. I am Keith Maleo. I work for the South African Civil Aviation Authority. I'm a testing standards officer, and also double up as a Pell inspector at the CIA. And I'm also the Secretary General for the SCAA, an Industry Rpas Liaison Committee, which is an effort from our end as South Africa to then get things going when it comes to this beautiful phenomenon called unmanned aviation or uncrewed aviation. In colloquial terms, we can just call it drones. What I'd want to do, I'd want us to then just go back a bit to look at the current system that we have when it comes to manned aviation, and how is manned aviation really managed to make sure that everything flows properly. We don't have any collisions. There's order. It flows expeditiously and safely, for that matter. So that is the plan for today, and then we'll move over to drones per se. So when you look at manned aviation in today's context, and probably in the past, say, 4 or 5 decades, a system that was used is called ATM, which is called air traffic management, where you get an ATC, or a air navigation service provider, which comes together that provide these sort of services to make sure that when you fly out in the air, everybody is safe. There's no collisions, so they entirely responsible for the airspace in that sense. With all that being said, we then move over to look at the future, what the future holds for us then, with the likes of Silicon Valley and innovation overall. One can really see that it's highly inevitable that for many industries to actually thrive and reach greater advancement heights, it will be done, and it must be done through innovation and technology. And aviation is no exception to that rule, too, to be honest. And to that point, we've then moved over, taking this picture of ATM, we then move over to UTM to say how we're going to manage drones. Because if one can imagine, if we have, say, about 1,000 drones in an airspace, the poor ATC sitting down somewhere in the tower would literally become challenged to control 1,000 drones. So what do we then do? Because we can see that the ATM is not fit for uncrewed aviation. Then comes the term UTM. UTM is described, or there is no official definition, because many states are looking at it as a domestic product, to a point when you go to ICAO, ICAO still doesn't have an official definition for UTM, because you go to your Europes, you get U-Space, and in other parts of the world, you'll get different name for UTM. But what it literally gets down to is that how do we actually manage these drones, unmanned aerial systems? How do we then get to make sure that they fly safely, they don't intrude on other airspace users, and so forth? So we have to come up with a management system that will monitor them the same way that manned aviation is being monitored today. It's so fascinating that the subject has come up to say, how do we then do it? To then get economists railing around the subject, and economists and entities such as your UTM market that have just sprung with the rise of unmanned aviation, to a point that they actually predict that the sector would grow by, say, 2 billion plus or minus 2 billion US dollars by the year 2025, and this is on compounded annual growth rate. So, okay, apologies about that. So moving on to our next slide, we then get to the mechanics of what is it that we do at the CIA and how do we do it, right? So from the great number that has been predicted, it is quite inevitable that we have to do something, because this is economy. But we're not just blind to the economy, to the opportunity, we're not commercial driven. Remember, the sole purpose of the CAA is safety and security regulation when it comes to aviation. But then they say we still want to enable this advancement. We still want to get people going. We still want people to participate in innovation of aviation overall. So looking at our current scope, high level, we then start with the civil aviation policy, and we have a number of acts that talk to this. It then gets cascaded down from the policy and acts. It gets to the regulatory framework, where we talk about the civil aviation regulations, we talk about the civil aviation technical standards. And if you know this, it's a case of having, you want to bake a cake, you have the ingredients and you have the techniques to then make this cake. So the civil aviation regulations would then talk to what ingredients do you need to actually make this cake, right? And the technical standard would then talk to which methods are we going to use? Are we going to put the stove on 180 degrees and everything? So the technical standards literally puts the regulations into practice. This is how you apply the regulations. So we have that. So it's the policy and the acts, and then it gets down to the civil aviation regulations and technical standards. And what we then did with solely for Rpas or for unmanned or uncrewed aviation, we then said, look, this technology is moving at an incredible rate. So we're going to have to do a bit further than just having our normal protocols. Let's then get a group together where we involve the industry, involve the CAA to then talk about matters that actually affect the industry and how we can actually shape the industry. So at South Africa, we then have what we call the CAA and Industry Rpas Liaison Committee, where we then talk about, say, the advancements of aviation or unmanned aviation. We talk about toothing aches, really, that guys in the industry are actually experiencing, because you can imagine it's a new dimension altogether. We just used to manned aviation, and to be honest, manned aviation compared to unmanned aviation is a bit slow. So we then moved over to having this committee where we'll then get to the nuts and bolts of it. And with the regulation too, you must understand that there is a civil aviation regulation committee. So we have a top-down approach and a down-top or bottom-up approach where we actually feed into the regulatory framework. Next slide, please. So in our effort as far with the Civil Aviation and Industry Committee, we've put down a few proposals, of which I won't go into the nuts and bolts of it, just to highlight what then happens when industry and the regulator then gets together to actually want to drive the efforts of our industry, UTM, unmanned aviation per se. We've gotten to talking to dangerous goods conveyance, with the latest being our national blood suppliers, which is South African National Blood Services. They recently got an ROC to actually start delivering blood and so forth. As you can imagine, it's a dangerous payload to then just start flying around with drones. But that is the effort, meticulous efforts were put in and so forth. We have a few ones that we're actually looking at the moment, such as your multi-uncrewed or swarming regulation, where we can actually accommodate a multiple of drones from one control, or being controlled by one person or one station. We again looking at, which for me is really important, the difference between what you do domestically and what you do internationally. So the terminology of RPS would then be derived from ICAO, but ICAO talks about international flying, IFR flying from state to state, but do we really want to apply the same regulations that are applied at international flying domestically? So that is why it's really important that we actually differentiate between the two, to then say, let's get a local term to then focus on what we do locally, so that even the broader public can also be abreast in the knowing to then tell what the difference is. So we also have Part 71, which will go in depth when it comes to Rpas personnel licensing, as opposed to having Rpas personnel licensing in Part 101, where you then get 101 as the alpha and omega for Rpas. We then discovered Part 71, and I think with how things are looking, we're going to continue to break down and also as the industry grows in South Africa, we're going to continue to then break down Part 101 to then start focusing on each and every aspect of regulation per se. Next slide, please. So what approach are we actually using, or are we taking at the CAA? So the approach that we're taking is we have a broader stakeholder consultation and engagement. Hence, we have the industry and CAA committee. And mind you, at this committee, it's not just the industry per se. We have interested parties such as your South African Police Services, your South African local government. We have the NSPs. We have the department itself, the shareholder, the Department of Transport, and we are growing as per se to say, hey, if you want anything, jump onto this committee to then get some direction, so that you can know what's happening and you can be equally aided and guided in that sense. So that is our approach, and how this actually helps us. It actually helps us to actually zone in and look at uncrewed operations per se, and also this becomes a beacon. This committee becomes a beacon for unmanned or uncrewed operations. So it will literally become your reference point if you want to then talk about anything or find out anything or apply for anything when it comes to drones or unmanned aviation. The one other approach that we are really pinning down is that we need to embrace sustainable growth for aviation innovation. So if you have an idea, we're not going to shut you down. You must come and present it to us, and you obviously you'll be probed from all ends. You'll be probed by SAPS, you'll be probed by operators, you'll be probed by the CAA itself, so that we understand your concept, your innovation effort, and so forth. So that is our approach in a nutshell. Next slide, please. So from my personal perspective and on how we should actually, but this is just me, and I always rely on the 3 C's. I call them the 3 C's, which is collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation. So if we then start collaborating and kill down this silo mentality to say, you're an NSP, go figure out, you're in charge of the airspace, and you don't get to actually engage your community. I mean, your community. It becomes a headache in the end, because now you find that me as Keep Airways or the airline, I'm doing my own thing to actually take care and make sure that drones don't disturb my operations. Whereas if I was going to collaborate with you, efforts won't be duplicated. We can save, and we can probably come up with a better product, right? So collaboration is really key in that sense. But once you started this collaborating, it's really important that you get the right people leading these collaborative efforts, so that you have cooperation. It's good and well to then start collaborating, but people have complexes, or lack certain skills or training or so forth, right? Obviously, we're going to play a broken telephone, our lines are going to miss each other. So it's really important that there is that sort of cooperation to create that synergy. And then from there on, like I said, we start coming up with product. We start co-creating together to say, once we've created this product, we know that it caters for everyone else that was part of the project. And part of the project means talks to the broader stakeholders and so forth. So this is my personal perspective. Next slide, please. Thank you. I guess that was my piece for the day. Thank you very much, Dean.
Thanks very much, Keith. Really, really interesting. Thank you very much again. Right, over to Karim to introduce himself and show you a little bit around UTM. Off to you, Karim.
Thank you, Dean. Good morning, everyone. I'm Karim Kovlet. I'm the Sales and Partnership Manager here at Altitude Angel. It's a genuine pleasure to join you today, and thank you very much for listening. Just get my slides progressing. So I'm going to talk today about UTM and the role of Altitude Angel. I lead the coordination for the adoption and growth of our services. I served for 12 years with the British Royal Air Force, specialising in force protection and airfield defence. And for the last 10 years, I've focused on enabling growth within our drone industry. I'm also a GA pilot, PPLA, and I'm also a keen rugby fan. So I've been watching South Africa with keen interest against New Zealand in this series. Altitude Angel is a UK-based aviation technology company that enables safe and scaled integration and use of drones into airspace around the world. We provide powerful, turnkey, unified traffic management capabilities, integrating drones with other air users at scale with total safety. Our products allow drones to be safely managed in airspace through real-time flight authorization, powerful airspace mapping, and ground hazard awareness tools, as well as conflict resolution services and much more. We're already trusted by thousands of organizations around the world to support their transition to the adoption of drone traffic in their areas of responsibility, be it by air or land at scale. We envisage a world in the not too distant future whereby we bear witness to an increase from today's level of drone activity to eventually billions of flights per year, as we continue to see the proliferation of drones for urban and advanced air mobility, amongst a range of other use cases that we already see being conducted today. Predominantly, our customers come from various backgrounds and industries and include remote pilots and fleet managers, airports and landowners, such as ports and provincial government, drone manufacturers and developers, and ANSPs and regulators. Founded in December 2014, safety and technology is in our DNA. We support around 50,000 flights on a monthly basis across 157 countries with 7 national level deployments. We're all about unlocking the power of drones to transform lives and revolutionize businesses across the world. I'm going to show a 2-minute video now that really demonstrates our focus on delivering solutions to enable us as an industry for scalable, safe, beyond visual line of sight operations in the future to facilitate the next generation of the drone industry.
In the 1800s, the rail network expansion fueled significant industrial growth. Connecting towns and naval ports together brought revolutionary efficiencies to the movement of goods and people, spawning entirely new industries and businesses. Today, we begin the next industrial and commercial revolution: automated flight. The Skyway system establishes a network of superhighways up to 10 kilometers wide, with the first main route spanning 265 kilometers between Reading and Coventry. Soon, time-sensitive transportation of medical items and organs, fire, medical, and police scenarios, as well as the delivery of high-value, low-volume goods, can start to be moved by automated drone, unlocking the vast potential of drones to transform lives and revolutionize business. Skyway has safety and privacy at its core. Powerful sensors on the ground looking up detect crewed and uncrewed aviation traffic and create a real-time moving map of the sky above, which is relayed to the Skyway controller in the cloud, where it is used to provide automated air traffic control for drones flying on the superhighway, preventing collisions. drones can enter or exit the skyway anywhere along the route, bringing access to millions of businesses and citizens. Automated flight, anywhere and for everyone. Just imagine. In the 1800s, the rail network expansion.
So the key question for us is, what is UTM? Well, as Keith mentioned earlier, there's no official definition of UTM by ICAO or other organizations. So really, we operate to a North Star that we agree with our customers and industry. So we believe that UTM is the unified traffic management, which is the increase of automation into airspace to support scaled, automated, beyond visual line of sight drone operations with transparency and safety. I think it's important at this point and worthy of looking at in a little bit more detail at each of the key constituent parts of this statement, starting with unified. Unified because everyone needs to be able to share the same airspace. To do this, we collaborate with ATM technologies to ensure a combined single point of truth of the sky, and we share this data with airspace users. Automation during the pre and in-flight phases of drone operations to ensure drones are digitally interacting with the respective authorities and that any risk posed by or to drone operations are mitigated to as low as reasonably practicable. Airspace. It's critical that our drones now and in the future are able to recognize and interact with all types of airspace in real time. This includes very low level, controlled, as well as dynamic airspace volumes such as NOTAMs, activated danger areas, and much more. Scaling automated BVLOS flight is the next generation aspiration, and we're helping step towards this today by providing in-flight tracking and deconfliction capabilities to unlock new use cases like delivery drones, such as those we've seen delivering vital medical supplies to remote areas, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, through to urban air mobility or air taxis, as well as for security, where flights can be an aid to active deterrence, as well as the apprehension for support to law enforcement. Transparency. The ability to share appropriate information in real time between the relevant stakeholders, whether these be authorities, drone operators, the aircraft themselves, as well as the UTM platform, in a functioning ecosystem, which cannot be understated enough. As an aviation technology provider, our focus is to ensure we reach shared methodologies and logic so we manage the airspace with total safety. And the final part of our definition about integrating these transparent ways of working to standardize the expected, support risk mitigation, and a viable system allowing maximum safe use of airspace with minimal friction. So this is how our system works. Our system revolves around those operators of drones by working collaboratively to understand the challenges and pain of pilots today, as well as the aspirations and expectations of industry in the future, regulators, and the public. We provide an accessible and commercially viable route to market for many thousands of drone organizations globally. You and many others around the world want to be able to access the airspace and land that you need to be able to complete your tasks, whether these be survey, inspection, imagery, videography, etc. This is why we built and deployed our Guardian UTM system, the core technology behind our UTM platform. By connecting operators to Guardian UTM through our cloud platform, operators can achieve seamless understanding of the aviation environment around them, from airspace types to ground hazards and much more. We also have well-established services in the market today, including our free service, dronesafetymap.com, and our iOS and Android app, Guardian, which can be downloaded and used for free. When we work with enterprise airspace and land managers, their concerns and pain is around authorizing safe flight, especially in a context such as an airport. We support them and many more, as well as the drone operators, by connecting these locations to Guardian UTM through our enterprise product. to provide overall situational awareness to national regulatory authorities, such as the South African CAA, and airspace managers, such as ANSPs. We also provide our operating system product to support much wider adoption of drones across an entire nation. Finally, our Arrow technology brings all of these capabilities together to be able to deploy the Skyway that we saw earlier in the video. We'll also cover this in a little more detail later. So as of today, mid-2022, we're witnessing simple, beyond visual line of sight operations. The future cannot be achieved by single organizations or even a collective of individuals. I argue that the future requires all of us as industry stakeholders to work collectively to take responsibility for achieving the future we wish to see together. This includes regulators, industry, technologists, and many more. Over to you, Dean.
Thank you, Karim. So really what we just wanted to depict on this slide was really the number of flights that are really taking off worldwide. On the x-axis, we've got flights per year, and on the y-axis, we've got the years as they go by. And really, if we look back a little bit to 2018, 2019, around the first introduction of drones, we've had some drone registries going on, and people really just finding their feet in the drone industry. But then things started to grow. We were in visual line of sight operations, and then we started the beyond visual line of sight operations. And this is where things are really starting to take off. And as we know today in 2022, going into 2023, there's a number of trials going on from UAV freight to transport, etc. But really the big thing here is the number of flights. So when we get to 2025 and beyond, growing to 10 billion flights per year worldwide, you know, how are we going to have safe skies, safe land? Because if something happens in the sky, something can land on someone on the ground. So really it's around those number of flights, and we've got to be able to manage them properly and create a safe environment for everyone. So the slide I really wanted to get to today was this one, and I'd like to thank the African Institute for Entrepreneurship, Tamiko and a wonderful crew for allowing us to use this picture today. It comes out of the South African drone research paper, so if you want to pop across to their websites, go register and download it. Also great information around everything drone in South Africa. And really we talk about our drone industry, and Keith and Karim have been talking about it, collaboration. It's really about everyone collaborating and moving in the same direction. And really what this picture has in it for us is really the main areas around who are the players in this industry and this economy, and what can they do to help everyone have a fruitful economy in South Africa and beyond. And the first obviously being the government bodies. We've got the CAA here today, and Keith and the guys are really they're great at opening up their ears and listening to the types of ideas. And you heard Keith say earlier, if you've got an idea, come to them. They'll see if they can help you to move it forward. So really it's around those direct drone industry bodies, and then it's the strategic support, the guys that are supporting the major parts in our economy. And then really around the guys like CSR, airports companies, South Africa being critical in this economy. How are they going to expand growth in South Africa? Surely not just from manned aviation at this stage, looking at the current landscape. And then there's lots of government users of drones. We know the Western Cape government using them. There's guys at the Western Cape University. I think they've got around, for their agricultural department, over 31 drone pilots. You know, they're really using the technology to help people in South Africa. And then you've got the aviation industry bodies, COASA and Drone Council, and these guys are critical for bringing together corporates and people interested in taking further some type of the part in the drone economy. And it's really important to connect with them and join those type of organizations as a whole. We can't forget the ancillary support services, so the lawyers, the legals, the advisors, everyone that pulls together this economy from a legal and from a legal perspective, and then the educational institutions, the intervention organizations, and obviously the drone skills and resource providers are critical in closing that skills gap in South Africa, not just from a drone perspective, but from a data perspective, from a cloud perspective, from a security perspective. How are they ingraining drone technology in their courses to give their students the maximum opportunity for this drone economy as they come out of university? Then we've got the drone operators. These are the guys on the ground, both your commercial drone operators and your corporate drone operators. And these guys are really at the key of using the data that they are collecting from these drones to maximize value for themselves and for their business and for their customers. And then we've got to remember, it's all about the business need. It's all cool flying a drone, but if you don't have a business need to solve, then you're dead in the water. You've got to look at something like agriculture or security or mining, and look for a specific area that you're good at in this economy, and actually just concentrate on solving that problem. It might not be a drone solution, it might be something else. So you've always got to keep that in mind. And then we really need to use the media and the PR guys a lot more. They are so willing to work with us and to publish stories about what we're doing good in our country. So yes, that's the drone economy. Thanks again to AIFE for allowing us to use their slide. Thanks very much, and back over to you, Karim.
Thanks, Dean. As I mentioned earlier, automation, digitization, and simplification of processes that are required to achieve safe drone flights at scale are the challenge of our time. We provide our enterprise product to support this activity, and I'd like to take this opportunity to show you a little more about how this works. So I'm going to show a quick video, and there are three phases to the video. First of all, you'll see as an operator using our product, such as the Guardian app, to create a flight plan. Unlike GA or commercial, this process takes seconds to complete. Next, we'll see what an airspace or landowner authority receives, and we'll step through their actions to see how they approve the flight that's been submitted by the operator. And finally, we'll review the situational awareness display, which is used by the authorities to manage flights occurring through their areas of responsibility. I'll also show you our conformant service at the end. First of all, we're going to create a flight. So on the left is the Guardian app, and on the right is the same flight being submitted on the online portal or through dronesafetymap.com. So the pilot very quickly and very simply selects where they would like to fly. In this case, it's Port Elizabeth, Kabacha. The date that they're going to fly, they would input the purpose of the flight. Then they select the pilot from their organization, the aircraft from their fleet, and submit that flight. That is the flight plan complete. So whether by the Guardian app or online with the web version, that flight plan has been submitted, and you can access your flight plan and see the status of that flight approval at any time. Next, we'll see the operations manager for the approval sequence by the authority. This is the access screen. The authority will review all of the requests that have been submitted to them. They can view all of the information that the pilot submitted, who, where, why, and what. They can also interact with this data to see hazards that have been depicted as part of the risk assessment. And once they're content with all of the details that have been submitted and they wish to approve the flight, they simply submit the approval. That approval will go to all of the relevant stakeholders within the authority, as well as to the pilot as an approved flight plan. Finally, the situational awareness display. So all of the flights that are occurring in real time can be reviewed through this system. So here we have 3 distinct drone operations occurring near the port. We can see that the icons are green, and we can also see the track and the flight plan area that's been approved for these flights. Each of these drones are inside the height, the time, and the perimeter of what's been authorized, and so the vehicles are demonstrated as green on the screen. We can also see other air traffic users in the vicinity, such as the helicopter that's moving to the south. Here we have a non-conformant vehicle. So this northern flight plan was submitted as a 2-leg of a triangle. The pilot decided to cut the corner off. This has not been approved. The authority had no awareness of this, and so the vehicle has turned red. So all of the relevant stakeholders are now notified in real time that that vehicle is now non-conformant. We can now see the drone is rejoining the flight plan. It's now entered the area for which it's been authorized, and thus it will go back to green. It's now conformant again, as expected. Finally, we just wanted to touch on the Arrow. The culmination of years of work by Altitude Angel is our Arrow technology. This is the underpinning capability for Skyway, which we recently announced, and you saw in the video earlier, will reach 265 kilometers in the UK initially. I'm going to show you a quick video and talk you through it, or a quick animation. So as we can see in this illustrated example, there are 4 drones operating in the Skyway, which is uncontrolled, non-segregated airspace, each going about their respective tasks. This video is on loop, so I'll talk through it as we go. Importantly, these vehicles are connected to the Skyway system using our cloud product that I mentioned earlier to receive Arrow feeds. So each of the vehicles can talk to Guardian UTM, and Guardian UTM can talk back to the vehicles. As each of the drones continues their mission, the Arrow system is constantly vigilantly monitoring the environment in and around the entire area. Having detected the helicopter that you see in the bottom right of the screen, Guardian UTM predicts that this helicopter will encroach the Skyway. Guardian UTM recognizes this aircraft is going to intersect and provides real-time instructions to the affected drones and operators to take deconflictive actions. In the demonstration on the screen, it's to hold their positions. This action will be held until the helicopter has cleared the area, when the UAS can resume their planned missions. At no time does the helicopter crew need to talk with or in any way interact with Guardian UTM or the Arrow technology, or indeed air traffic. Guardian UTM provides all of the required actions to ensure that we avoid all other air traffic users. This maximizes use of airspace, maximizes safety, and provides minimal disruption to other airspace users. Thank you for listening. 4 real key takeaways for me. We discussed today what UTM is, and I've repeated our definition here. I ran through the flight reporting and authorization system, which we call Guardian UTM Enterprise. Dean very succinctly covered the South African ecosystem. But really, my key takeaways here are that as innovators, as technologists, as drone pilots and regulators, our work is really not done, and that we must collaborate. We share a responsibility, and I think Keith summed it up really nicely in his presentation. This is about collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you listening. Happy to take any questions at the end. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Karim, and well done. Very, very nicely done. Right, the next section I just want to get through before we'll open up for Q&A. As you know, I'm a handicapped scuba instructor, and really a while ago I could see I was helping people on weekends and helping their families and letting them enjoy their weekends, coming diving. But I thought, what do they do during the week if they haven't got a job? How do we help them get a job? If he's in a wheelchair, he's had an accident a year ago or 5 years ago, like how do we actually help them to get a job in an industry? And when I was looking in the aviation industry and looking at the RPL course or drone pilot course, as some of you might note, I thought, well, let me see if I can create a program just to create some jobs, and it's sustainable jobs we're looking for. So I really went to and took this idea. We launched it. I got EOH on board, and I just want to thank each of them, Venetia, Elmarie, and Melisha, for really just supporting me through this program. We got them to as EOH, to actually sponsor the bursary program, so I'm really, really grateful on that. And then some key players in the industry and out of the industry that have come together for a common goal. And really it's where their hearts are. The first being Edwina Magamata from Tusanang Enablement Support Services. Some of you might know Kim James from Drone Guard or Aerial Works. Most of you should know, sorry about my screen changing, not sure what's going on. Sam Twala from NTSU Aviation Solutions is our ATO and will actually be training the students. And very grateful to have Dr. Lumka Manelli on board to help us through the Class 3 medicals, which is probably the biggest hurdle we have with the CAA. And we're really challenging them around what type of people they can accept on a Class 3 medical. Doesn't matter if they're in a wheelchair or if they are missing a leg or something's wrong with their hand, etc., etc. We're really challenging them, and they've been amazing at the reception on what we're doing and the type of candidates we've got to move this forward. So we're through the interviews, we're through the medicals, and we're now waiting for some applications around the Class 3 medicals with the CAA. And funny enough, I didn't even know that EOH had occupational therapists in our group, and we're just waiting for some reports to help some of the other candidates before we go forward. So that's the bursary program update. I would have loved to have shown you pictures, etc., and shown it to the world, but we'll get to that. Watch the media for more information. So now we're going to move on to the questions and answers. And I'm not sure if there's, I actually just can't see the questions at the moment. Is there anyone that can help me, please?
Yeah, sure. So a question was asked here: does the UTM warning system take into consideration the Rpas performance when holding for an intruder? The answer to that is yes. So whether the geometry of the aircraft is multi-rotor or fixed wing or hybrid, the type of power that the aircraft has as well, all of these factors are taken into account when the instructions are provided by Guardian UTM directly to the aircraft, yes.
Thanks, Karim. Are there any other questions someone would like to put on their microphone and ask any questions verbally? There is another one from Timiko here. How many companies in the world are offering UTM solutions, and how does what AA do compare?
Well, that's a great question. So the distinct capabilities of UTM, the experience that we have over 8 years, we're deployed already across several nations, and that experience, along with the drone pilot community, where we're receiving those 50,000 flights per month, really stands us apart, because the quality of the data that we are able to share with the community is fantastic. Also, our work with national authorities as well as local authorities, CAAs and ANSPs, really ensures that we're able to free flow that data in the most appropriate way and at the most appropriate time, to ensure that the imagery that we're depicting, both graphically for users and also digitally for computer to computer digitization of that process, it is really second to none.
Thanks, Karim. The next question is, are the aircraft requirements for the UTM to work transponder?
Presuming that question is related to access to the Skyway, the requirement to access the Skyway is to connect with the Guardian UTM system, and that's done through our cloud product. So no is the answer. You don't need a fixed transponder or a hook-on device of any description. The integration is through our API data sets, through our cloud product, directly into the GCS and the aircraft.
Thanks, Karim. The next question here. Fully automated flight implies that there will be a lesser need for skilled pilots and a greater need for IT skills and analyst skills. To what extent do you agree with this, and how will it affect future employment opportunities?
It's a great question. So what Skyway and Arrow is not doing is replacing pilots. As we can see already since the kind of dawn of the drone era, probably 10, 15 years ago, as a commercial capability, is a great number of drone flights being conducted for a great number of use cases. What we haven't seen is certain use cases that have been unlocked. What Arrow and Skyway does is unlock additional use cases. What I think most people would agree is that an urban air mobility air taxi being created as we speak by lots of the large vehicle companies, for example, like Hyundai, wouldn't be flown by pilots either on board or on the ground. That is indeed, as Dean alluded to at the beginning, that would be an impossible task for, I think Keith mentioned that actually, it'd be an impossible task for air traffic to manage those flights. And also, who would the human air trafficker be talking to? Because it's a machine. So we're not here to replace drone pilots in any way, shape or form. We're actually here to open up the skies and ensure that you can continue to operate very widely across the use cases that you already are, whilst other flights which are increasing in volume, which are high worth flights like urban air mobility or advanced air mobility are able to be conducted safely.
Thank you,
Can I also just come in there?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just run my camera. I think it's a great question. What we then need to do is to then look at the role that humans are actually playing in this current time, and there's obviously going to be a role shift, right? You think about air traffic control, they're called controllers, and as then we grew, then we look at the term actually becoming air traffic managers. So it's that whole evolution. We're not replacing this whole system. It's not going to replace anyone for that matter. We just have to set up the skills, train the people, and actually open up the industry. Because if you think about it, there's no way that an ATC can actually control these drones. So you then have to look at such skills of data analysis and so forth. So we've opened up the whole industry altogether, which was never there in the first place. So the whole change management has to be carefully managed to and introducing people to what's about to come, because like it or not, we don't know what the skills of tomorrow are right now. However way we can best prepare, we do with that, but we continue to innovate and grow the industry in that sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith. A few more questions before we run out of time. There are quite a few coming through, so we will tackle them after the event as well. Another one, can you share with us countries are implementing UTM, and what are the findings, the biggest enablers and barriers?
Wow, that's a really wide question. I could talk for an hour just on that one. So it's an interesting question. Nations are moving forward. In Europe, it's a regulated activity, which we're in the implementation phase for at the moment. But by January 2024, it becomes a legal requirement for nations to have implemented certain key facilities. Other nations, though, are also engaged with UTM because they see that as best practice. So things like registries of pilots, registries of aircraft, and the ability for a UTM to access those bits of information in real time to confirm that a pilot submitting a flight request near an airport, for example, or anywhere for a commercial purpose is being conducted legally, safely, is insured, another factor. So there's been lots of learning on the way. I'd be really happy to take that question offline with the person who asked it, because there is, as I say, you could probably talk for hours just on that one topic.
Thanks, Karim. I've got one more for Keith. When do you think the South African Civil Aviation Authority will be looking at permitting full autonomous flights?
Jeez, that's a
Give
that's
us
a
a
good
date,
one.
Keith. Give us a date.
Had I known that I was gonna be held gunpoint, I wouldn't have joined this. Look, obviously it's a process, just like any other change. If we're moving towards that direction, it has to come from the top tier management of the country, and that is the state, obviously. But to be honest, I can't give you a date. I've been asked this question before. I can't give any date. Do I see us getting to that stage? Well, do I see aviation getting to that stage? Yes, it's definitely, it's inevitable, right? But within South Africa, we just have to have some will to then say, this is the direction that we're taking, and then we just start building upon that. Obviously, we have to run through trials and tests and everything to make sure that everything is good and safe. And yeah, that is my take on it for now, and I think that's the best answer I can give. We can probably, like Karim said, we can discuss this on these ends, and we will still not come up with the perfect answer. Thanks, Dean.
Thanks, Keith. There are a few more questions. I'll take one more before we close off quickly. Another one for you, Karim. I think if you use a mission planning software like Terra or Pilot, how will the application be able to derive the data from the controller?
It would be interesting to know the intent there from the ask. How will the application be able to derive the data from the controller? So data output from Guardian to the vehicle is through the GCS, which is connected and integrated into Guardian UTM using the cloud product that I talked about. Data from Arrow, if that was the other meaning, so deriving data about the environment, we look after that using required sensors, depending on the geography and the topography. Also, what kind of vehicles are anticipated to join the Skyway and for what purpose. That information is gathered centrally then by Guardian UTM, which makes those overall decisions to be able to provide the deconfliction instructions back to the vehicle through the cloud API set to the vehicle.
Thank you.
Again, happy to take that question offline with the asker.
Thank you. I will be taking all the questions from you as our guests, and we will address all of them with you. We want to thank you for joining us today.